tonight we're talking about portals. I'm convinced that 99% of the defeat of Christians who are getting beat down, that are disoriented, delusional, depression, I'm convinced it's because of portals, not necessarily all the time because you opened up a portal. Well, listen to me, it's very important. Could it be a portal that was opened up before you, before I, a generational portal? Matter of fact, have you ever moved into your house or into an apartment or a place you live, and all of a sudden strange things start happening? Or all of a sudden you start having bad luck. I don't like luck. It doesn't exist in my world, but things start coming against you. And we don't think about it. We go, I just got sick. You know, it's just kind of like, that's what happens. Or I wrecked my car, you know, things like that happen. Folks, what we're going to talk about is these portals and how they get here. One of the key things. Now, I want you to stay with me on this. It's very important. God laid this on my heart. The Ouija board. The Ouija board. David, what do you mean a Ouija board? Yeah, the Ouija board. You ever hear about it? Do you know about it? You ever used it? Oh, it's a toy. It's a game. It's a harmless peekaboo into spooky world of the unknown. Really? Okay, what is a Ouija board? We're going to take this apart. It's where two or more people would sit around a board, and it has letters on it. And they place their fingertips on this little piece of wood. It's a heart-shaped piece of wood. And they pose a question. They ask a question. And they watch as this piece of wood is guided from letter to letter, spelling out a word, spelling out the answer. And the question could be about the future. It could be, actually, they talk to the dead, communicate with the dead. When you're sitting with the Ouija board, it's very common to be talking to a spirit. You're not really talking to the dead, you're talking to a demon. And that demon's giving you information. It came out of the American 19th century. Spiritualism, here's another thing people don't understand, is that during the Civil War, I mean, this country was in such disarray and there was so much depression. People died by the time they were 40, 45 years old. And they were trying to figure out what was going on. They were grasping for anything they get their hand on. That's called spiritualism. You hear about this country being, our forefathers being Christians. I'm not going to deny that, but I will tell you, spiritualism seeped into this country a long time ago, and I don't think we have really repented and gotten it out of the soil, and I think that's one of our problems. Are you smelling a generational curse? So the question is society still using spiritualism? Or are they even condoning it today? How are we using it? We're going to talk about this because God condemns it. Most important question that we have, how does God view the Ouija board? And the reason I'm going to talk about the Ouija board, it's very important, is things that I don't believe most people understand what's going on with this little play toy they sell. Let's go to Deuteronomy, Jared, 18:10 through 12, Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12. By the way, it's so good to be with you tonight. Love you guys. We're here every Monday night, 7 p.m. a new time. All right, this is our church. How many people or pastors will get up in the pulpit and say, now we're going to talk about the Ouija board tonight? People go, what are you, crazy? I got to hear some feel-good stuff going on here. Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these things, detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. So I'm at Israel. I'll drive out everybody that does these things. It's detestable. He hates it. And I mentioned all of these things. You say the Ouija board, David, it's not really anything to it. Remember the movie The Exorcist? Yeah. Well, that was actually a true story, not about Reagan, not about a little girl. It was actually about a young boy in 1936. He was born into a German Lutheran Christian family, I believe it was, somewhere in Maryland, 1940s. Give him the name Roland. Okay, I think they call him John Roland. I don't know if that's his real name. Doesn't matter. But when his Aunt Harriet died, he was brokenhearted. He wanted to communicate with her. But let me back up. Before Aunt Harriet died, what did Aunt Harriet give little boy Roland? She gave him a Ouija board. And together they, as a 13-year-old boy, they played the Ouija board, so that when she died, he started playing the Ouija board. It wasn't too long after he was possessed, full-on possession. Jared, I think we might have a picture of him. I'd sent you a picture. Let me know if you put that up. This is Roland. Okay, true story. Okay. People are like, no, it's not true. It is true. That's how serious this stuff is. I've known firsthand people that have played with this and gotten in major trouble. And why is it so important? Because it's sold all through the United States, all across the world. In the United States, Walmart, big box stores selling it. Matter of fact, when the movie came out, Ouija board, about 5 years ago, sales soared 300%. And they're selling it as kiddie games. Now, folks, this isn't Harry Potter where you can watch a movie. Even though I don't agree with Harry Potter, this is a mechanism you communicate with the dead. And if you live in an apartment building, chances are you could have kids all through that apartment building with Ouija boards communicating with the dead and not even know it. And you're going to tell me that you don't live in a portal? You're going to tell me, David, that has nothing to do with me? Are you going to tell me that all across America, they're selling these games, they're spitting them out, and people are using them, even though they don't know what they're doing? They're still doing. Scripture says you shouldn't do it, and they have parents that are Christians. They should be telling them that they shouldn't do it, and they don't because they are brain dead. Why? Because preachers do not preach the truth. Sorry, I got carried away. But okay, prove me wrong. This is important stuff, all right? It was invented like in the it was 1890 it was invented, a guy named Bond. But in order to get it patented, he had to go before a board. And this board, this group of men said, we're not going to patent this unless you can prove to us that it's true. Now, these guys weren't Christians. They were just regular guys. They said, prove to us it's true, or we're not going to give you a patent. He proved that it was true. He got on there. He had them he had one of the guys place his hands on the little heart. And the man who worked in the patent office, who didn't know the man who put his hand on this little heart, he said, what's my name? The guy at the patent office. Well, this guy didn't know his name. The Ouija board spelled his name. A guy named William Fewell, who took the Ouija board and blasted it off into the success that we're seeing now. This was in the 1920s. It was reported that Mr. Fewell built his career and his company by getting on the Ouija board, consulting the dead, asking the dead what he needs to do with his company, the next move. And in February 1927, February 24th, 1927, he was on the rooftop of his factory. Freak accident. Fell off the roof. Broke his rib. They thought he'd be okay. They rushed him to the hospital. But on the way to the hospital, his rib suspiciously just rammed up into his heart, and it killed him. I could spend hours talking about the sickness, the injuries, the deaths, the suicides, as a direct result from the Ouija board, as a direct result from the Ouija board. What's more important is, what does this have to do with you and I? Because it's spiritualism. It's reaching out to another force other than God our Father. It's sorcery. What does God have to say about sorcerers? Now, we talked about how he felt about witchcraft, sorcery, communicating with the dead. It's detestable. Let's look at Exodus 22:18. Jared, let's put that up. Exodus 22:18. This is not politically correct, but it's spiritually correct. Do not allow sorcerers to live. Just don't let them live. Now, some translations say, do not suffer a witch to live, but clearly God condemns sorcery. What is sorcery? Sorcery is the Ouija board. What are we doing? We're selling it in stores across America, across the world. God's condemning it. He says, don't let them live. Now, are you telling me that you're going to let your child play this when God says, don't let them live? Sold in major department stores all across America, Walmart. That doesn't surprise me. Now, David, I don't have kids. I have grandchildren. I do have kids, they're older. Maybe I do have kids, but they don't play Ouija boards. Well, what does that have to do with me? Understand, these things are portals. They open up demonic portals. Sometimes it's through the generations. And your child may not play a Ouija board, but your child may be playing with someone who's playing with a Ouija board. I call it Ouija porn. Because you don't know what's happening in someone else's home. You see, you have to understand there's white witches and black witches. I talked about this on other shows, and we'll be talking about with my guest, witchcraft. And the dark witch, the white witch will tell you that the black witch is no good. That witchcraft is bad. That the white witchcraft is good. Now, this Ouija board, I would say, falls into this white witchcraft. By the way, white witchcraft is actually taught and used in many churches across America, in denominations, and we're going to talk about that in the next break of how that's done. So chances are you have contact with someone who's had contact with someone who's dealing with the dead, who's playing in sorcery through this Ouija board. And why do I bring up the Ouija board? Because I can't think of anything else that exists, and you help me out, because maybe I'm wrong, that they sell in the stores as a child's game where people play it and have fun, and yet it's detestable in God's eyes. Yet he says, put the sorcerers to death. And yet it's totally against the will of God. And yet we're not repenting. Tonight, we're going to close some portals. You know, if I said to you, you got a leak in your home, you have a gas leak. You go, what? I say, yeah, you got a gas leak in your home. Don't light a match, because if you do, you're going to blow up. Well, I'm not going to light a match. What do I do about it? Go out to your tank and shut off the valve. Yeah, let me do it. You'd run right out there. You'd shut that valve off. Why? Because you got something in your house that could kill you. Folks, this is no different. It's a spiritual weapon of the enemy. We're talking eternity for some of us. People that don't understand this. They say you're out on the ocean, and all of a sudden your boat takes on water. You hit an iceberg. You hit the bottom of something, and all of a sudden you come and say, David, we're taking on water. We're going to sink. Well, go plug up the hole. Of course, so you plug up the hole. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to drown. Folks, this is spiritual drowning. We're doing it every day, and no one's talking about it. And here I am yelling about Ouija boards because people are thinking it's some kind of child's game, and it's serious business.
The time has come for God's people to take a stand. Legalize Jesus. Text 71777, the word chosen, to 71777, or go to davidheavener.tv/chosen. Join the movement.